welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast, and we have just heard an absolute bombshell, mate. It's the release date for Until Dawn Remastered Remake, however you want to word it. It's going to be October 4th. First of all, mate, what are your first reactions to that bit of news?
I'm really happy because, as content creators, we've been in the dark a lot this year. Just we've got all these games coming out, but nothing with a release date. It's selfish. It's going to apply to no one else but me and you, mate. But I'm happy that we have a timeline. That it's going to go Frank Stone, Until Dawn, Life is Strange, Double Exposure in that order, with healthy gaps in between, you know. And it just helps me from a planning perspective, you know. I know exactly when I'm going to play the game. It's coming out on a Friday, which I'm pretty stoked about because, yeah, early plug, guys, I'm going to be streaming it and you can join me on the exact date it's coming out. So we're going to play it live on the channel. So, I'm just absolutely stoked. And obviously it's come with this video as well. And that's just kind of pumped up my enthusiasm even more, mate, because, you know, a lot of it is focused around the updated graphics and they look phenomenal. So yeah, I'm just I've always said this game didn't need to be made, but you know what, the Until Dawn fan hat's back on. I don't care. I'm so happy we're going to be able to play Until Dawn remake / remastered. Don't castrate me for getting it wrong. I'm going to say both so I can't be slaughtered. There you go, mate. How about yourself?
Yeah, FU comment section. So basically, yeah, honestly, I'm thrilled as well for the same reasons. I like the fact that there's healthy gaps. At one point I was thinking, we're going to get dumped all these games and there's going to be a matter of picking between them. So you can look forward to all them games, guys. Frank Stone, Life is Strange, and Until Dawn Remastered as well. But of course, we got this release date from this comparison trailer, which of course looked back at the original trailer for Until Dawn, and we saw the graphical enhancements from it as well. Have you got any sort of things you want to point out in terms of what you make of the visuals in the new game? I know we've covered it in a previous video, but any sort of new things you've spotted?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it looks great. There's a few little, itty bits in there, like Mike going around the sanatorium. He looks a lot more dirty and battered, and you see the effects from that. This game's being built from the ground up with Unreal 5 apparently, and it does look stunning. Unreal 5 is just this crazy engine, and you're seeing the full effects with it with this Until Dawn game. I quite like that there's differences in there. We've already mentioned kind of how the game's going to go for more of a sunset feel, and then the game gets darker. And weirdly, I am warming up to the idea, mate, because it kind of does get that sense of how it starts kind of more bright, and you've got more of a variety in tone and color palette throughout the game, and I think that's really going to benefit the style. Because before I was a little unsure, because I just really liked the shot in the first chapter of Sam looking at the mountain and the night sky, and I thought, the sunset kind of diminishes that a little bit because you can hardly see the mountain. But I'm kind of more into it, and then when it gets later on, where you're going around the mines, the game looks a lot darker and grittier and more horror-like. So yeah, I'm kind of into that. One little nitpick though, which we always fucking love to do on this channel, last time I brought up how weird Emily looks. I mean, she actually does look alright in the prologue. That might have just been a beta thing. But at the bit, because it looks like there's a revised prologue, reworked prologue as they say, which we will cover more. But I'm unsure. You know when Mike says, "I'm no one's man, Emily"? I don't know about you, mate, but I'm getting Life is Strange levels of how his dialogue doesn't quite match with his lips. Maybe it's just an early test and that's from a beta thing. But I looked at that, was I'm not sure about that. But that is my one little nitpick, mate. Everything else looks absolutely stunning.
Wow, I didn't even notice that, to be honest. So I'm going to have to go back and look at it now. I mean, if that is all we can really find as a flaw in this track, or I should say you found the flaw, then that's a positive thing, because that's something that can be sorted out pretty darn quick, I imagine. As far as my thoughts, yeah, I've got to admit, I think it's quite refreshing how I could look at both of them and equally see merits in both, because I do still love the original graphics from Until Dawn, and I still think that it holds up to this day. But equally, I can look and see what Ballistic Moon have done with the lighting, and as you say, it looks like, especially because of the Mike Sanatorium scenes, that it is going to get darker as it goes on, which will then lend a more different, perhaps more modern horror atmosphere than what we got in the previous game. and less of a reliance on the blue tint. So I'm completely open to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing firsthand what it's going to be like when we actually play it. And you'd think that was it, given the fact it was a comparison trailer, but we have actually found some more interesting details, mate, that I'm going to put to you. So you mentioned the prologue a minute ago. And we've basically got some quotes from like one of the team that was talking about it. And in essence, what they're saying is that while the events of the prologue remain intact, there is a little bit of tweaking in that we're going to spend more time with the Washington family to address the pacing issues, which for me, I didn't really see any pacing issues in the prologue, so I'm interested to see what they've done with it. Does that mean it's going to be more longer? But the impression I'm getting, mate, is that we're actually going to get to know Beth and Hannah a bit more to then perhaps really drum home the fact and the tragedy of what ultimately happens to them at the end of the prologue. So I don't know what your take on that is.
Yeah, I'm all for it, and I'm stoked. And obviously in the last trailer, we saw that new footage of Anna and Beth carrying Josh to the sofa, Beth taking the trash out while the stranger spies on her. So we knew we were getting some form of revised prologue. I agree with you. I think the pacing's fine, but it says it wants to build more empathy, doesn't it? And I'm all for that, because if you think about the original game, Josh doesn't interact with his sisters at all. He's passed out for the prologue, right? Hannah and Beth are kind of like a separate entity almost. They're more tied in with the rest of the group, right? In this one, I'm all for that, building empathy, because that's going to kind of hit home, maybe get some more Josh sympathy in there. And yeah, no, I think that could be really powerful, because like when we look at Until Dawn, we look at it as an 8-person cast. We almost like dismiss Hannah and Beth, don't we? Unless you're like a diehard fan. But I think the average gamer thinks of the cast as like an 8, since they're like the playable ones, well, obviously minus Beth. But I feel like there is merit to kind of make Hannah and Beth more kind of like tied into like the main group. They are prologue fodder. I do get that. But yeah, like revising the prologue and getting more empathy out of it is, I think that's a good thing, lad.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, presumably this means that the voice actors for Beth and Hannah have done some work in the background for this game, because I was thinking, or could it be that they've taken cut content from the original game that Supermassive made and put it in there? But I was seeing some shots, and I could be completely wrong, but like there was this one particular shot where we was playing as Beth in the prologue in the new game, and it looks like even the downstairs looks like it has a different layout. Like I could see like a couch and whatever. It could be just the lighting and that I've just completely forgot about it. But when I think about the prologue, I think about like the sort of the kitchen area and like the bar that sort of Josh and Chris are like slumped over. But it looked like you could explore around a little bit more. So we're clearly going to get more time as Beth. There's going to be new dialogue. But the fact it says Washington family, there is a little part of me that wonders whether like Josh is going to have more of a thing in this. Possibly not. We do know that there is more to the Washington family, so could the mum and dad be involved? Probably not in like the main prank, but could there be a flashback? I've also said like in this game it would be amazing if we had an opportunity to play as Hannah after she fell down into the mines, and then you get to see her slowly transform, and obviously like Beth is going to be down there. You're going to start to see the slow transformation into a Wendigo. I feel like that would be so innovative, and I'd personally love to see that. It's probably wishful thinking on my part. So yeah, honestly, really sort of nice little tidbit of news there. On top of that, we've also got the new camera angles, which we've mentioned a little bit as well. So it looks like, mate, that there's going to be more dynamic camera angles. So it's going to be like a more modern approach. It's going to be almost like The Quarry, where you have the shoulder, like the camera's just over the shoulder and you're following them in first person. So we're no longer going to have that fixed camera angle like we did in the original game. Is that something that you can get on board with?
You know what it is? Like, originally, the purist in me would say, why are they changing it? However, I kind of have warmed up to the idea, because if I want those camera angles, I can just play the original. I can bust my PS4 back up, play the original game and get those camera angles. because I think having fixed camera angles works better on a horror level. We've seen it in like Resident Evil, you know, like there's a reason those camera angles were there. The amount of like horror tricks that the original game was able to do, whether it's Mike walking through the sanatorium and you've kind of got like the skeleton there, whether it's Beth walking through like, you know, the lodge, and then you've got like the clock that jump scares you. If you go for the quarry camera angles, you're not really going to have those. Like, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder all the time, panning the camera around me, looking out for threats, you know, and I'm going to feel a lot more relaxed doing that. However, this is a remake, this is a remaster, whichever one you want to call it, comment section. So, like, I honestly think that I want this game to be fairly separate to the original. I want it to be bang for my buck, and I feel like messing about with like the new camera control mechanics is a good way of making the game feel the same, with the essence of Until Dawn that we love, but putting a new spin on it. So yeah, in short, mate, yeah, I'm actually really excited and pumped to see what this new camera angle does.
Same, and you've touched on a note there that I completely chime with, in that I'm so glad it's more than just a reskin. I'm glad, actually, as much as I love the original Until Dawn, I'm glad that they are tweaking bits and pieces so that it stands on its own 2 feet. If I was to be a little bit critical, I feel like one of the brilliant things about the fixed camera was that, and I'm thinking back to when you're playing as Mike and Jessica and you're walking through the trees, it really does give that sense of like you feel like you're being watched as you're walking, which was such an effective like horror tool. But I completely accept as well that actually perhaps from like a, you know, player to character perspective, you may feel more like the character if you're closer to them when you're playing as them. So I do get that whole POV angle that they are trying to go for, and to be honest, it did work in the Quarry really well, so I'm also not that much against it.
On top of that, you also can pan the camera, and we see it in this little trailer that we've got, the comparison trailer, where you can look at Beth's facial expressions. So I think that's another cool thing we're going to get with this as well, where we're going to be able to look at the facial expressions of the characters we're playing as. Like, if we're Emily in the mines, are we going to see this terrified face? Obviously, that could be a blessing and a curse, depending on if they put effort in. But what we see in this prologue, Beth looks kind of scared as she's walking around, and I feel like they can bring out more emotion with this camera style as well.
Absolutely, mate. And there's one final thing that I wanted to tell you about. So basically, which I did sort of expect because this is coming out on PC as well as PlayStation, but it seems like that they've removed the Don't Move feature, which for me I didn't have a problem with. I know that the Don't Move feature did get quite a lot of criticism at the time because it didn't work per se for a lot of people, but it's got me thinking, like, I'm really intrigued as to what that mini game is going to be now, because I feel like it's so embedded in the original Until Dawn. You think about that final sequence where you're playing as Sam and you've got to like move between the different parts of the lodge and then ultimately escape. That feels so iconic to me, and it's going to be weird seeing a different mini game, and I just hope that it lives up to what the Don't Move did in the first place, because like I say, I didn't see an issue with it originally. But what about yourself?
Yeah, because Supermassive Games have tried to pull out different mini games for those sections. I feel like the one in the Quarry didn't land. I feel like the DPA Heartbeat ones, I get it and I like it. I just suck at them, so I never want to see them ever again, but I will have to for 4 more games, 4 more years potentially. But I get it. They have to do it because ultimately they're bringing this game to PC, which is how I'm going to be able to play it. Now, that whole Don't Move mechanic, it's built for a controller, right? Because controllers rumble. You're not going to be able to do that with like a keyboard, right? Like, I'm going to be sat here with my keyboard flat. It's like, you're going to pass every QTE like, that they throw at you because your keyboard's not moving or your mouse isn't going to move if you lay it flat, right? So, yeah, like, they've had to do it. So I am intrigued to see what they're going to do. But yeah, it's one we're completely in the dark with. It depends what it's going to be. I felt the Don't Move sequence, it was iconic and I loved it, but there were times where there was no rhyme and reason. There were times where I was failing it when I swear I had it still. Then there were times where I thought I shook a little bit, but I've managed to pass them. Like, there were ones I failed, ones I succeeded. Like I say, no rhyme or reason. So I'd like to have something that, you know, has the balance of challenging but not ridiculous. So yeah, we're just gonna have to see what it is, but yeah, that's something that we are gonna eagerly kind of wait and watch for to see what they do throw at us, mate.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, guys, that was it. Obviously, we just dissected the comparison trailer for Until Dawn release date. There's some other little details that got released too in a couple of articles. Do let us know in the comments what you think of all of our points and some of the things that we shared in this video. And more importantly as well, if you found us new here, do subscribe, because we're going to be covering Until Dawn Remake, Remastered, whatever you want to call it, quite a bit in the month of October. Liam's going to be streaming it, but there's going to be bonus videos coming off of that as well. And if that's not enough, do check out our existing Until Dawn playlist, where you can find a breakdown, chapter by chapter analysis, and plenty of bonus videos as well. Anything to add, mate?
Not at all, lad. I'm happy with that. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Let us know in the comments what you thought of our points. And if there's any sort of thing you want us to discuss Until Dawn related, please let us know. We grab every comment, so if you have any questions for us, ask away.
Good stuff, guys. See you in the next one.
Take care, guys.